Hello, I'm Dave Feinleib, and this is Beyond the Shelf. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. You can find out more about how we're helping leading brands and retailers like PepsiCo and Instacart build content at scale and take advantage of our free content health audit at itsrapid.ai. My guest on today's show is Leah Logan, General Manager of Retail Media at Inmar Intelligence. Leah has been working within the retail media ecosystem for over 15 years. She started her career focusing on creating a retail media capability within major retailers, then transitioned onto the buy side within shopper marketing. Following this transition, Leah's focus shifted to the technology that enables retail media today. Leah has been recognized as a who's who in shopper marketing while working for Dr. Pepper, Snapple Group, and as a thought leader frequently featured in publications like Ad Age, Digiday, and Adweek for expertise in social commerce and the connected shopper experience. Leah is currently leading the retail media business at Inmar Intelligence. Under her leadership, Inmar was named a leader in sell-side retail media by an industry-leading research firm. We discuss Leah's role at Inmar, her approach to content-based marketing, and her insights on retail media. Please enjoy my conversation with Leah Logan. Leah, great to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for having me, Dave.
A pleasure. Would you take us back and tell us how you got your start in the space?
Yeah, well, like all college students, I was leveraging every relationship possible to get an internship. Luckily, I was able to land at CJRW, an agency in Bentonville. Actually, I think they were in Springdale at the time, but I had no idea what I was going to be doing in the marketing world, but knew I needed a marketing degree to do something. As I was working at that agency, first as an intern and then came on full-time post-graduation, I did everything from copywriting to, I helped create a sales catalog for the University of Arkansas. I worked on the Naturals launch in Northwest Arkansas. And I can tell you that none of those experiences contributed to the passion that I found in my next endeavor, which is retail media. So I took a job as an account coordinator, the lowest of low entry-level jobs at Triad, very early on in the Triad saga. And, enjoyed working with clients, enjoyed supporting them on all of those tasks of getting their paperwork and setting up their creative assets. And I constantly found myself actually trying to sell to them, like, hey, you're doing this homepage thing. Have you thought about doing this product page thing? Maybe you should add this tactic. And very quickly found myself in a sales role from there, transitioning into new business. And, I think the reason why that was the first, only, and last media sales job I had and why I loved it so much was that I believed in it a lot. I fully believed in the ability to, leverage retail properties to connect with shoppers. I believed that we were driving results. At the time, there was the enhanced measurement that exists today did not exist back in the 2000s. We don't need to talk about years because then we date people. But I was really passionate about that. And, I found myself with so many questions that being young in my career, I wanted to understand how do these partners get to this point? Right? I was living in my own little siloed ecosystem thinking like, why is this shopper marketing person not signing my IO? Why are they not getting back to me? How come this isn't a priority? And I found myself kind of backdooring into the other side of what happens in retail, working at Dr. Pepper Snapple Group. And then understanding that there's so much more that goes into that person's role and also just the shopper experience. And, at first I, had to take a pause and say, wow, there's, everything from pricing to JBP planning to, creating merchandising plans and go to market release, even like inventing products, like, so much more that happened. And I loved the ability to connect all of those other shopper touch points to my Walmart campaigns. I saw a real synergy in being able to tell more of a story using multiple tactics and connecting the dot between launching a new item while also providing some sort of trial incentive, while also, another passion point I found was like leveraging creators and having creators talk about the new product and what they loved about it and what they were excited about and their experience with the product. I was so passionate about that that the company that I was using to carry these campaigns out, formerly known as Collective Bias, now known as Inmar, offered me a job. I actually, I find this hilarious. I knew the CEO at the time, and he kept asking me to do these voice of customer interviews with his senior leadership team. He said, hey, my head of products in town, can you meet with him? Can you talk to him about your perspective? What are you looking for? And here I'm, going in with all of my opinions and telling, this is what I think you should do better. This is what I really like about what you do, but like it's leaving a gap. You need to focus on these things. Same thing with the, head of his client services org, Amy Callahan, who is still one of my solid partners in crime. I'm telling her, like, I love your account team, but sometimes they need to do this better. I met with the head of sales again. I love my person that sells to me, but sometimes, they could be more responsive. So I kind of had all of these voice of customer sharing sessions thinking that I'm doing, my friend a favor. And then he sends me a job offer. And then he's like, everybody loved you. And I'm like, were these my interviews? Like,
what a great story.
I know, right? And so all these things that I'm saying, this is how we improve and this is what you can do better, ended up being my job. It was more of a kind of commercial strategy type of role that he was looking for. And then Inmar purchased Collective Bias back in 2016. And I have worked on multiple different digital media solutions. I've worked on our digital incentives business. I even worked on some settlement stuff for a little while, kind of all over the board. But I think, it kind of kept coming back home for me was that I was really passionate about being able to connect all of these different shopper touch points, knowing that they all should be connected. Retail media has been a practice of Inmar's for a couple of years now. But over the last year, we've really, really invested in new technology, more people, more capability. And I have the pleasure of leading that business.
I love it. I want to talk more about your current role. Before we do that, I'm curious about a couple of things you said there. First of all, what a great story. Your passion comes through loud and clear. So I can see why customers must love talking with you. If you had to give us a couple takeaways from all of these experiences, and you've been really, I think, amazing, these opportunities to see it both on the brand side, the vendor side, agency, all these different pieces. What are some of your rules of the road or your lessons learned, if you will, from those experiences?
One of my learnings that's kind of through and through across the board is that you can always do the role that you are in and do it well while also pursuing the role that you want and where you have your passion. And I think I've been extremely fortunate to work with leaders that have recognized that I do have those passion points and there are things that are really important to me. And if there are younger people out there listening, I know I've counseled, kids in my youth group or, nephews, nieces. Sometimes you have to do the job you want and show that you can do it. And, you've had to get out of the right leadership team, but I've been fortunate that I've had leaders that have said, wow, this is a great role for you. And so, I think this has been able to keep, all of the different kind of moving part's really fresh for me. Like I've actually been in Inmar. I've been in Inmar since I was at Collective Bias. I started Collective Bias in 2015, and I've had, 6 different types of roles, all a degree removed, but I've always had the opportunity to continue to grow, and I think that you should always be passionate about doing what makes you happy. And just because it's not your job, because it's not what's on your job description and paper, doesn't mean you can't contribute to the organization. So that's a huge learning for me, and one that I want to continue to keep pretty front and center. I think the other learning is to understand that you don't know you don't know everything. You're not ever going to know everything, and you can have expertise and you can bring perspective, but in all of the industries where I've functioned, social commerce being a huge one, retail media, I don't have all of the answers, but I know that I want to move forward. So I think, don't be hindered that you have to know everything, that, we're all figuring this stuff out together. And I don't think anyone knows exactly what to do, 6 months from now, like in the retail media space. I think we have a lot of opinions, a lot of people making LinkedIn posts, but we're all going to figure it out together.
Great insight. So make the job what you want it to be and don't need to know everything. You're at Inmar now, where you've been for a number of years. Tell us about the company and in your current role.
Yeah, so Inmar Intelligence is it's quite the ship, I would say. If you go to our website, you're kind of like, wow, like what exactly do you guys do? Because it looks like you do a lot. And what I would say is we do a lot, but what kind of centers the company is our use of data and wanting to make our customers and the brands and retailers that we work with smarter, so that at the end of the day, consumers benefit, right? We want to impact consumers' lives, whether that's in our healthcare division and, we're helping them by, removing drugs from the market and safely disposing of them, right? Or whether that's in our kind of MarTech, marketing technology group, which is where I sit, where we've got media and promotions, and we're looking to save people money because we all need some savings these days, right? So at the core of Inmar, what brings us all together is really just kind of the collection and use of that data for good. In the division that I'm in the marketing technology division, we have everything from digital promotions to promotion settlement, which we've been doing for 40 plus years. We have our buy-side media group, which is all about servicing brands, and then retail media. And that is where I sit. And our retail media team, what's really interesting about Inmar is that because we've been powering digital promotions, and we do power digital promotions for several huge retailers, that is access to first-party data that we can use for targeting and measurement in the retail media space. So, as retailers go to work with us, we have kind of this seamless ecosystem that you can plug and play modules that make the most sense for what you're trying to accomplish. We also have e-commerce as a service that we provide. We have a whole plug and play e-commerce platform. So you can imagine for some retailers who are looking to create kind of this cohesive and connected shopper experience, we're one partner that can tie up their promotions, their e-commerce experience, and then also make sure that we're contacting them in the most relevant and personalized way through media. So it's kind of, trifecta.
The whole thing.
Right?
The whole thing. What does a day in the life look like? Are you meeting with customers? Are you working with folks internally? Or how does that kind of shape up?
A day in the life is crazy. I tell my husband all the time, I feel like, like a stock trader that's like on the stock floor, like answering the calls and like dumping water on my face, like just, crazy town, because there's just so much, right? So there's the customer side of things. And not only is there we have current customers that we need to deliver on revenue expectations, or we have a retailer literally 2 days from now where we're launching their entire on-site media offering. Like it's happening in 2 days. So, making sure that all of those launch details are on track, making sure that the product teams, the engineering teams are all, rallied and our timing is aligned. And, so it's delivering on current customer expectations and managing that. There's also the growth side of things, right? Bringing in new customers. So I'll do everything from I'll do cold outreach myself. Hey, I'm going to be at Shop Talk, which I will be at Shop Talk. Do you want to meet with me? Do you want to have dinner, breakfast? To, walking through platform demos with my product team, right? And having them show platform capabilities to, even building custom retailer roadmaps. Like, hey, what's important to you? If that's what's important to you, let's talk about how that fits into our engineering roadmap and let's co-create. A lot of focus on being in front of customers because I am very, very passionate about voice of customer, both existing and potential. And we're really rallying as an organization around the most efficient and effective ways to pass that information along to stakeholders. And I'm really, really proud of how important voice of customer is to, even our executive leader, like our CEO wants voice of customer updates.
When you're talking with customers who have competing priorities for what they'd like in a product roadmap or business plan or what have you, and you're the VOC, the voice of the customer, how do you balance those different needs from the market? And also, how do you communicate those to folks internally so that it is meaningful and important to everyone? Because I imagine there's some translation that needs to go on from your meetings to the executive team, for example.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I don't have as many friends on certain days as others. I'm pretty passionate about voice of customer dissemination. What I would say is there is a translation layer, and what I think is important is, the way I run my business. There's obviously revenue is a very easy, language for everybody to speak. Money talks, right? But I think what's important about the retail media space is that because it's constantly morphing and everyone's trying to figure out how do they get like a half a step in front of what's going to happen, we have to make some investments in a future state, and we have to do them with absolute confidence. And they may be wrong. They could potentially be wrong, but the opportunity cost for not making those investments, right, is so much greater because somebody else will. There are new players popping up every single day. I mean, it's annoying at this point. And as I get a customer, especially if it's a, tier 1, tier 2 retailer that says, this is a pain point that I have that I need solved, I'm looking at that as, as close to a crystal ball as I can get. Not every retailer will have the same pain point, but, if my goal is to get a step or two ahead of my competitors, as well as, continue to go, working in pursuit of this cohesive customer experience everybody really does want to rally around, I'm gonna push for that investment, even if those dollars are not right on the other side of the contract.
Speaking of crystal balls, you've seen this space evolve from its very early days of retail media to this kind of explosive growth that we're seeing today, huge investment. What are your observations? What's changed? What's the same? What's coming up when you think about retail media?
Yeah, so I would say the only thing that has stayed the same has been having display units on site. Like since when I started, offsite media wasn't a data play. It was just taking media that wasn't on site and driving it to the site. Like that's how early days it was. And I think retail media has been more clearly defined as impacting shoppers from within a retailer's ecosystem, right? So some sort of either in the store, on an app, on the website, whatever it might be, or utilizing that retailer's data to reach their shoppers and bring them into the ecosystem in some way, in the store, on a site, whatever it might be. I think with that type of evolution, the prevalence of data has become extremely critical. And also the reason why retail media is growing so much with third-party cookie deprecation, on the cusp. And then I think the other thing that's changed quite a bit is measurement. We kind of touched on it earlier, but when I was slinging retail media in the early days, it was more about being able to go to your buyer and say, hey, I'm investing in this, program, spending money with you. I've got my new item. I'm promoting it on your website. So, give me a facing or give me an end cap or give me something. Those things are still happening through JBP planning and vendor credits, right? But the expectation now is that because you have this retail data, you have to be able to provide the retail outcomes and you have to be able to report on what happened. And because we are using that data, we can do those things, which is a huge shift. Like the expectation is so much more tedious. And, even to the point now where ROAS isn't even acceptable. Like everyone wants to know, like, what was incremental? Show me what what this investment drove that wasn't already going to happen. And I think we're seeing more and more investments from retailers looking at what is that incrementality reporting. We're actually piloting some incrementality reporting ourselves.
There's so much to unpack there. I want to spend a moment on data. What's an example for folks who are maybe working on the digital shelf or don't spend the day-to-day in retail media directly of using the data or a way data is enabling something for a brand or a retailer?
Yeah. So typically when we talk about retail data, we're talking about some form of identifier that we use to find someone in a digital environment and being able to serve some sort of ad to them. It could be multiple different types of formats. It could be a CTV ad. It could be a banner ad. It could be a video. But essentially, many retailers, like a lot of the ones Inmar works with, they have their own like loyalty programs. And those loyalty programs are capturing all the transactional behavior of a person. And then we take that information and match that to some sort of online identifier. And then we reach those people through ads.
That makes sense. Speaking of different channels, CTV, got on-site, you've got off-site, social, all these different ways of connecting with the shopper. What are you seeing there and what are leading brands doing? Challenges, opportunities? How are they navigating all those different channels?
Yeah, so channel and format is a big topic right now with retail media. Essentially, more and more retailers are being asked to go find more and more funding and to do so normally in a cost neutral fashion, right? So it's not just go find more people to sell it and grow your sales team, like go find the budgets. And with the lines being so blurred in between a retail media spend and a national media spend, at this point, more and more retailers are looking to bring the right channels for those national media buys. They're looking for that funding in a national bucket, whereas looking at like a shopper marketing or trade funds attached more to budgets that they feel like they're already kind of maximizing for the most part. So, more and more retailers are looking at CTV as a growth area. CTV being, digital ads that show up on like a Hulu or show up on connected TV versus linear, just for our shelf listeners. So that's a channel that they're really expanding into. I think one of the challenges that retailers have is that it's difficult to create a lot of differentiation in that channel. Creative is one area where they're looking to be unique. Being able to integrate like a QR code to shop as an example, like maybe there's a unique format. Some of the things we're piloting with retailers are even bringing like a creator and bringing creator content into a CTV ad to differentiate the creative and have a little bit of a different connection point. So that's one area that's growing quite a bit. I would say another huge area is actually the store. More and more retailers are looking at their stores as a media channel because it's a way that they can reach these very captivated, actual shoppers, right? And they've got millions and millions and millions of store impressions that they could be selling and maximizing. So we've got a lot of But a lot of retailers looking for ways to create more of a dynamic, kind of personalized experience in the store, which is something that we're working on as well. And then I think social is another really interesting area, and it's one near and dear to my heart. I've been working in social commerce for I don't even know how many years at this point, 10 plus. Social has always been looked at as this kind of more awareness, top funnel kind of purchase, right? And over the years, it's continued to morph to like really live between the lands of retail media and brand spend, because the expectation is that you're going to see ROI. You want ROI reporting. You want to understand, the impressions has not been the KPI for social or creator buys for like 5 years at this point, right? It used to be a space that retailers kind of stayed away from because, you've got walled gardens, so you've got some data and measurement issues there. And then also it's complex. It's not as easy as selling on-site banner ads, right? But I think now in order to capture those spends, more retailers are willing to like figure it out.
So broader retail media, you've got social, you've got the store. What's your advice for brands? They are ready to invest. You go into a meeting with a brand, they go, oh man, I've got all these different channels to be thinking about. What are you seeing the brands do, the best brands do when it comes to making their investments?
I've been giving this guidance for years now, and I don't know. I think some people get it and some people don't. But I've never been able to isolate tactics based on goals in terms of I would only ever use CTV if my goal was to drive awareness, as an example. I think all marketing tactics can be in play, budget permitting, right? To accomplish marketing goals, but you should weight them differently based on what you're trying to get accomplished. So as an example, if your goal as a brand is to drive increased purchase frequency, one of the things I would suggest would be, why not use a creator to create a new usage occasion? If they're going to come in and they're going to buy that 2 liter every single week and that's all they're going to buy, you're going to have to give them a reason to pick up an extra one. A great opportunity to layer in some creator content. Whereas, if you have an initiative where you're trying to capture lapsed buyers, you may put more money into an incentive. And, maybe they're price sensitive and you've, fallen outside of their budget. And so that's a great opportunity to take an incentive. And then you want to ensure that you're reaching those people who have lapsed, who might be outside of the retail ecosystem at this point. Maybe they don't shop at that store anymore. You're going to want to find them through an offsite media channel and tell them about the incentive and bring them back in to use the incentive. So, my advice is to think through not just, I want to drive sales, I want to drive ROI or whatever, but how do you think you're going to do that? What's the strategy behind it? And then how should you weight those tactics given that specific strategy?
I love it. So aligning the goal and then thinking about what tactics you might use to get to those goals. In our audience, we have the retail media folks. We've got our digital shelf folks. How do you think about that experience, the advertising part, the content part, the shopper experience? What's the right balance and what's the right investment between those two areas?
Again, I think it comes back to, how are you going to drive those sales? I think if you have an existing shopper and they're highly engaged and you're like, hey, I need them to pick up one additional product, just drive one additional trip or put 2 in the basket, right? At that point, I would say you should make more of an investment of your dollars, not just an investment, but weighting those dollars towards the retailer ecosystem and staying inside of that ecosystem. And so that might be where you do, some enhanced shelf advertising. Like maybe that's where you're going to, increase your search budget, or maybe you add some content enhancements to your PDP, or, bring a video asset in and, maybe you're launching a line extension and that's really your strategy to get that additional purchase. why not use a video to show what you could do with that line extension? Maybe there's a unique recipe you could make or a unique occasion to bring it to life. I really do feel passionate about there's no single marketing tactic that only makes sense for specific KPIs. They're all marketing tactics. They could all make sense given your budget for any KPI. But I think working backwards from a strategy will help you define how much you invest in the ecosystem versus how much you need to put outside of the ecosystem.
Is there a piece of content or a campaign that you've seen, let's say in the last few months or even the last year, that really stayed in your mind, that you thought you saw this and you thought, wow, that's really the way to build some great creative or to connect with the shopper?
I've seen a lot of great campaigns. I would say I can't single one specific brand or partner out over another. But what I would say has been more in the best in class realm have been the campaigns where, there are some brands and products that have kind of these dual decision makers where you have, this younger demographic that you're trying to reach. And then you have this older demographic that's likely going to be the actual purchaser. And I think that is a conflict that exists constantly in the world of shopper marketing, right?
So true. Yeah.
And so I've seen, some brands do a really great job of tailoring their tactics and their creative accordingly, but connecting the campaign overall. So as an example, the brands might have a unique flavor launch and they're going to use TikTok and they're going to use very authentic creators to talk about this amazing flavor and create buzz and, let them do fun, engaging viral videos in that space. Whereas to the parent outside of that space, they're going to use more specific ad creative. And with our ad products, we kind of do this in the moment targeting, very contextualized targeting. But they're going to reach that person who's going to buy the product. And they're going to talk about the fact that it's almost going to make them cooler to buy it for their kids, right? Like your kids think this is cool. You could be cool too, but we are talking to you specifically. And then even layering in like an incentive. And I think that is the best of all worlds because it is cohesive, but it's also very personalized and tailored.
What a great set of insights. Well, before we wrap up here, I do want to ask you about AI. It's a topic in every news item we read, seemingly. How much are you seeing this in production environments, with retailers, with brands? You talk to so many parts of the ecosystem. What are you seeing in terms of AI?
I'm seeing it all over the place. I'm seeing it with creative generation. I'm seeing it with, data mining and data organization. We use AI quite a bit in our retail media platform to create kind of predetermined decisions for people who are maybe not as comfortable creating a media campaign. So, helping guide them along the way to say, based on what you're trying to accomplish, this is what we think you should do, and providing more of those recommendations and kind of pre-populating the experience for them. So I think in the retail world, there is this need to be more efficient, to create, extend the overall resource pool you have using tools and automation. There's a desire to utilize AI to make your lives easier, but also there's that fear where you have to let go of some of the control. And the retail, especially retail marketing ecosystem, is very much driven by guardrails, control, transparency, trust. So I think there's a little bit of a struggle there, but anywhere where you can use AI to create more efficiency while not sacrificing some of those controls, I think that, we're seeing a lot of adoption. Like our platform uses quite a bit of AI to create the right experience for the user, where it's not sacrificing any of the control that a retailer would want to have in place. So it's they're comfortable with it. But I would say we have yet to be asked to do a full-blown AI generated ad creative builder, right? Not one that doesn't have heavy approvals in it.
Coming soon. Speaking of what might be on the horizon, predictions, things you're keeping an eye on for the next 12 months and beyond?
Yeah, so I'm definitely watching kind of this, Andrew Lipsman, former e-marketer, talks a lot about the creator era, and he and I nerd out on that because I firmly do believe that creators are going to continue to be a more influential piece of the retail media mix, even with the digital shelf teams, like bringing that creator influence into that last kind of point of purchase, right, as they're shopping online. So I think that's going to continue to become more prevalent. There's going to be more and more investment and willingness to deal with the complexity. I think the stores are going to continue to become more experiential. I feel like there are enough retailers now who are looking to invest in kind of digital screens or interactive screens or some form of digital experience in the store that I think as shoppers, we're going to find ourselves with additional value, whether that's showing what incentives are available or helping with a shopping list. I think a lot of retailers were kind of going down the road of, well, we'll just put all this stuff in our app and then they can just engage with us through the app. And I think there is a lot of engagement happening within an app, but there's still this huge kind of eyeballs opportunity that's being missed, especially with retail media. So I think that's going to continue to be more prevalent. And then I think the JBP world is going to continue to shake up a little bit, right? Because, there are still those arm twisting moments of, this is your JBP, this is the commitment, like those things still happen. But I think there's more willingness from retail partners now to talk about how can you feel good about this investment? How can we work together to ensure that we go back and maximize the investment internally? And so there's more and more focus right now on measurement and creating just more transparency in measurement and making sure that everybody understands and is speaking the same language when you talk about ROAS or when you talk about incrementality. So I think that conversation and those two things being very, very linked is going to become more prevalent.
I'd love to ask you a few quick questions before we wrap up. The first one is, and I know it's hard to just pick only two, but which two people have inspired you the most in your professional life?
So one of those answers is extremely easy, and that's my dad. He is no longer with us. He passed away in 2015, but I swear I still hear him talking to me constantly as I, navigate the professional world. He was definitely one of the reasons why I started with this, don't just do the job you have, do the job you want. That was constant encouragement. Even back when I was, working the counter at Hardee's, taking orders. He's been extremely influential and I think will continue to be. I learned so much as I was younger that I apply daily. And I'd say the other person in that space, it's probably one of my earlier mentors that I've had, and that was Sherry Smith. It's interesting. She's actually the GM at Criteo right now. So we've got kind of this, we've got this relationship in the retail media GM's race, right? But as a mentor and her being a female and being early in the retail media space and myself being a young female in the space, there are just so many little lessons that she taught me about professionalism and, finding your person and just understanding the expectations you should have with a mentor. She really created the right relationship between mentor and friend. And I think as a leader, I learned a lot about that young. And, I'd like to say that my team has benefited greatly from that now.
I have no doubt that they have two great sources of inspiration and so many great insights. When you do get some time outside of work and family, what are your favorite hobbies? What do you like to do?
I have two little boys, 6 and 3, so there isn't a ton of time outside of work and
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
people are like, what are you going to do this weekend? I'm like, well, whatever my kids are wanting to do.
Let me get to the weekend.
Yep, that's my stage in life. I would say, I enjoy traveling. I enjoy time with friends. Honestly, I enjoy just conversation and spending time. I think of time very preciously. So, if there's an opportunity to get my girlfriends together and go out to brunch, like I'm gonna take those while I can, because I'm still in the tiny child stage of life.
I hear you. Well, great insights. I've learned so much today. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to find you online?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm not a stranger on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active. So, I'm happy to connect and make a new friend and network. Networking is always healthy. Always happy to help someone if I can. Or, if you want to get more information about Inmar and some of the things Inmar does, you can email me. I assume, Dave, you can attach my email to the podcast.
We'll include a link in the show notes, and you're going to be at Shop Talk. Leah, it was so great talking with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. I enjoyed it.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Beyond the Shelf is brought to you by It's Rapid. It's Rapid is the platform Pepsi, Sierra Nevada, Revlon, and hundreds of other leading brands and retailers use to build personalized content at scale. Whether that's images, videos, or product descriptions for their product detail pages, shoppable videos or banners for their digital ad campaigns, or sell sheets for sales enablement, brands that use It's Rapid are able to produce high-quality, on-brand content on average more than 80% faster than category competitors. To find out more, please visit itsrapid.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shelf.